So the agenda for tonight, the opening, call the roll.
Yes. Ashley Paddock. Here. Matt Reynolds. Absent. John Lastly.
Here.
Kevin Krulik.
Here.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Gordon Perry.
Here.
Brian Tandy. Absent. Jane Taylor.
Here.
And Lori Gross.
Here.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the approval of last month's minutes, meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? Corrections, revisions, any comments about them?
I move to approve the minutes.
A motion to approve them?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. All right. Next item is order number 2018-02, confirming the redevelopment commission. Ben, I'm just going to let you run with this one.
We did have one item before that on there to approve the 2019 meeting dates.
Okay. I obviously didn't get a chance to see this. The dates for 2019 Plan Commission. Everybody, other than, I'm assuming that everyone. Any questions, comments, revisions?
No, the only thing is that first meeting's on a Tuesday, right? January? It's on a
Yes,
Tuesday,
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Not, just one of these things be, okay.
I'd make a motion that we approve the 2019 meeting dates.
We have a motion, and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sorry, Ben, I didn't see that. You'll walk us through, Ben, order number 2018-02.
Sure. So the Plan Commission Order 2018-02, this is a step in the process to establish a new TIF allocation area. If they pull up the screen, I can give you an idea where we're talking about here. Many of you are familiar with this building on Patterson Street, the old Prairie Industries building, significantly deteriorating building. We have a development partner who has purchased the property. They are in the process, if you've seen, they have started demoing the building with the intention to clean up all the environmental issues and then redevelop the site as a new industrial speculative building. Their major challenge here is that the costs to prep the site for new development are significantly higher than your typical industrial site, given the fact that they have a massive existing building that needs to be torn down, and then also some significant cleanup for environmental issues. I think, if I remember correctly, there's several feet of dirt that they're going to have to excavate and remove from the site appropriately because the contamination is such that you can't remedy it without just essentially removing it. So they have a significant site prep cost associated with that. So what we've discussed with them is the idea of creating a single site TIF. It's a self-supportive TIF. It would be a developer purchased bond, so all the risk is on them. There's no risk on the city. And this step in the process would be essentially affirming the economic development area that was just adopted by the Economic Development Commission, or Redevelopment Commission, I should say, last week, and then approving or identifying the fact that this project conforms with our development plans, such as the comprehensive plan for the city of Lebanon. So that's the order before you tonight, is essentially approving that this conforms with our comprehensive plan.
Questions for Ben? Is there a time frame, or a time frame at all? Do we know of, Ben?
It's going to take them a while just to demo the building. I don't know if they've given me a time frame for that, but I think the intention is for them to break ground on the new building immediately upon completion of the demo and site prep. So it will be a 2019 project. I'm just not sure of the exact schedule, but they do intend to have that demoed very quickly as they can, and remedy that site so they can start construction new buildings sometime in 2019.
Is there any county water issues or anything that affects us with
From a
Prairie Creek?
utility perspective?
No, with the creek?
So they would actually, the redesign, I've got, they're going to stay away, they're going to stay outside of the regulated drain easements, they're going to stay outside of the floodplain. So this is actually a significantly better option than what we've got there now, because that building also sits on top of our main sanitary trunk line that goes to the treatment facility. Let me enlarge this a little bit for you here so you can get an idea. It's about a 70,000 square foot building. It's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of half of the square footage that's there now. You can see that flood zone line here, so they're making sure that there's no building in the flood zone, which the building is currently in the floodplain now. This proposed easement is the location of our sanitary line, so again, they're making sure the building is outside that sanitary line. And the regulated drain easement also, it's not marked here, it follows along that kind of the similar flood zone line here. So they're actually addressing many of the issues that are already present now. We're already also talking to them about making sure to remove the bridges that go across from building to building, which do cause some blockages right now when the creek is high. So they'll be removing those bridges as well as part of the project. So they are in fact addressing many of the issues that we have with the creek in this area right now.
Ben, do they own both properties, the warehouse area and this property, or is it two different?
They do not. The entity that they purchased it from the property owner to the north. They purchased this site. My understanding when that property owner, when they bought the building, both buildings came together as a package deal. They had no interest in this site whatsoever, but they essentially had to purchase from the previous property owner. They wouldn't sell them individually. So, I think they recognized pretty quickly there was some significant environmental issues with this site, so that for them to be able to offload it to somebody that knows what they're doing to clean up these properties is kind of a win for the city and for the property owner that's there as well.
So is this an EPA company that's actually cleaning this up, or is this?
The company's name is Enviroforensics. They essentially specialize in kind of being the third-party entity that buys these distressed properties. They clean them up and they prepare them for development. They won't be the developer of the building. They're kind of the intermediary to clean up the property and get it ready for that development. But this is what they do for a living, in essence.
Any other questions for Ben? And Ben, we're looking for favorable?
This would just be a motion to adopt order 2018-02.
Okay. Anyone care to make a motion to adopt?
I move we plan to pass the order 2018-02.
We have a motion
I'll second it.
and a second. Kelly, will you take the roll?
Ashley Paddock,
Yes.
JohnLassley,
Yes.
Kevin Krulik,
Yes.
Keith Campbell,
Yes.
Gordon Perry,
Yes.
Jane Taylor,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Right.
Very good, thank you.
Item number 2 here, Ben, old business, dockets 1834 and 1835 for Lennar Corporation.
Yes, so just to kind of keep you guys posted, this item has been tabled. They had an opportunity to continue twice, and after one continuance by staff and one by applicant, they had to table it, which will require them to re-advertise. They're still working through details on the site plan, and their home designs are still underway. So they just didn't have the information ready to go for this meeting in time for us to be able to review and provide staff reports. So the intention right now barring any changes, that they would be back for the December meeting. But we still don't have enough information right now to review and be ready for you guys for December. So they will have to re-advertise to all the adjacent property owners and put the notice in the paper because it's been tabled. So right now the tentative plan is to be back at the December meeting, but that remains to be seen once we have an acceptable plan for you guys.
So there is time for them to do that for the December meeting?
We will see. I think that's their intention, but we don't have the information yet. So they've got a couple weeks to be able to provide that.
Okay. So then let's move on to new business, docket number 1846. Skinnell Properties, Ben, docket 1846.
Yeah, let me pull up my information here. This is one of two large industrial projects looking at our business park, and these sites are very large, so I'll do my best to be able to find a plan that shows you kind of the gist of what's going on with this site. Right. Skinnell Properties is looking to develop an approximately 550,000 square foot manufacturing facility. This would be kind of a light assembly, light manufacturing facility here. This is for State Project Ocean. Although I guess the user's been announced already because it was in a council meeting. So the company is DS Smith. They do packaging for a variety of different industries. So this is one of their would be one of their flagship manufacturing facilities in the United States. It is an international company. So just a little tidbit on the company. So this is a great project for our business park. We will walk through some of the highlights of the staff report here for you. Get my information out. This project was at the Board of Zoning Appeals a couple of weeks ago. There's a variety of variances that are fairly typical for a building of this size that they did get approved from the Board of Zoning Appeals. They requested relief from the sidewalk requirement. As you're all aware at this point, there are no sidewalks in the business park. So they did request relief from that, so that there wouldn't end up being a sidewalk to nowhere. There's a couple of landscaping variances that they sought. The truck access areas, they're not going to provide interior landscaping because it'll probably last 3 days before a truck runs it over. And then also they got some other parking curb, et cetera. The other one was they have a chain link fence that extends slightly into the front yard on the southeast part of the property, so they did get variance for that. So nothing really out of the ordinary from what you might expect from a 550,000 square foot building. This is going to be a very attractive looking building. It's going to fit in well in our business park. I will show you so you get an idea. Here's a couple of elevations of the building. You kind of get an idea of what's being proposed. All right, let's go back to the site plan here real quick. This building does also have rail access, so there's a rail spur that comes in on the south part of the property here as well. Main employee access is on the east side of the building, and the main employee parking is the east side of the building. They do have their primary truck access here on the north side, and you'll see that there are truck docks and trailer parking on both the north and west sides of the building. In terms of some of the technical review, you have a fairly lengthy list of comments that were provided by our technical advisory committee, and they have addressed many of those already. There may be a few things here and there that just need to get buttoned up, but they have addressed all of the technical comments already for the most part. Going through planning staff review, as you can see, I've provided a chart showing all of the standards as far as setbacks, et cetera, and they do meet all of the applicable zoning standards, setbacks for the planned business industrial zoning district. In terms of the parking, they actually have provided slightly more parking than what's required for a building of this size, so they have plenty of parking spaces for all required employees, et cetera. In terms of lighting, we did address this with them. There were a couple of lighting levels, foot candle measurements at the property lines that exceeded our maximum permitted. They're in the process of revising that. It will be getting that back to me at any time. They have committed that they are going to meet all of those measurement requirements. So that's underway. I don't have it yet, but it's underway. So one of the conditions of approval is that they would provide an acceptable lighting plan that meets all of our UDO requirements, which they will do before seeking any building permits. In terms of the landscaping, let me see if I can find that page fairly quickly here. So as I suggested, they received some variances for the parking lot landscaping requirements associated with the truck access areas. They have provided both perimeter and interior parking lot landscaping in the front of the building per the UDO requirements that you see here. So there's significant plantings along the street side and around the perimeter of this parking, and then the interior requirements that you see here all have been met. So they have met all of the UDO requirements for landscaping outside of any variances that they sought at the BZA a couple of weeks ago. In terms of signage, up until just recently, the user wasn't known, so they haven't submitted a signed package yet. The intention would be that they would submit a signed package, however, that meets all UDO requirements once they've worked out the signage requirements with their tenant, once they get to that point. So that will be coming here shortly once the tenant identifies their needs. In terms of architectural review, I showed you the elevations. Our UDO suggests that large-scale manufacturing facilities like this are exempt from our specific architectural standards, but as you saw, that they've provided a very attractive building for the size of building that we're talking about. So there's only so much you can do with a 550,000 square foot building. But it is a very attractive building. They've created some variations in color. There's a fairly significant notable office component at the front corner here. So they have met all of our requirements in terms of the Unified Development Ordinance for architecture, and then I believe they probably also have received approval from the business park for their architecture as well. So they're all good to go there. So in terms of staff recommendation, we have recommended approval of the development plan, subject to 3 conditions. One, that they address any remaining technical advisory committee comments prior to applying for any building permits or site improvements. Number 2, stormwater approval, that they receive formal drainage approval from the City of Lebanon Board of Public Works prior to application for any permits. And 3, the lighting plan, that they provide a photometric plan that indicates light levels at the property lines that are within the parameters permitted by the UDO. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ben?
Ben, did I see a line of sight survey?
Yes, they did provide a line of sight study. They don't have the exact locations of the HVAC units yet, but they provided that study to essentially provide a plan for where those units could be located such that they would meet the line of sight requirements from the adjacent property lines. So the intention would be that they would be roof-mounted units in a location that such that they would be hidden from the street.
That's what I thought it was,
Yep.
but I just wanted to be sure.
Yep, that's exactly right.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion on docket 1846.
You want to do any public, there may not be any public comments. Did we want to do?
Oh, okay. Public comments, I guess. I'm sorry. I didn't quite understand it. Any public comments? Don't everybody rush at once. Okay. Seeing as how there are no public comments.
Did you want the applicant to kind of fill in any details also? I know they are here, so I'd like to give them an opportunity. They brought their
Sure.
whole crew here, so.
That'd be great.
For the record, my name is Bill Butts, and I'm with Kimley Horn & Associates. We're the civil engineer on the project. Ben did a great job, so I'll keep it short and sweet. We are very excited to be bringing this project to Lebanon. This will be one of the most advanced plants and one of the largest plants that DS Smith has in the world, not just in the United States. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Questions? Okay. Thank you. Entertain a motion for docket number 1846.
I make a motion for docket 1846, approval of the subject development plan contingent on the following condition. All TAC comments are adequately addressed, stormwater approval is obtained, and the lighting plan is submitted and approved.
I'll second that.
Second, I have a motion and a second. Kelly?
Ashley Paddock,
Yes.
John Lastly,
Yes.
Kevin Krulik,
Yes.
Keith Campbell,
Yes.
Gordon Perry,
Yes.
Jane Taylor,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Great. 1846 passes. Docket number 1847, Reynolds Farm Store. Ben?
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have a development plan for Reynolds Farm Store. This will be a familiar project to you. It's been before you once before. We're just on a different site now. So the site they had been previously looking at was a county-owned site, and they ran into some environmental questions with that site. And so they've actually flipped back to the site that they already owned on the east side of the road, just catty corner from the site that they were proposing before. So let me kind of give you this is going to again look very familiar. It's the same building, a little bit different layout on the property, but again, something that you guys saw about 4 or 5 months ago. All right. Let me zoom in on here a little bit. To give you a little bit of an idea where the site's located here. For those that are familiar with this area of town, this is on Indianapolis Avenue, just off the interstate. The project site is identified here. So the site they were looking at is literally across the street right here. Now they're adjacent to the church on the east side of the road and surrounded by the county fairgrounds. So the site's slightly larger than what they were looking at before, configured a little bit differently, but again, going to be a very similar project to what you guys looked at previously. So let me get the site plan for you here in a second so we can kind of take a look at that. All right. So here's the general layout of the property. Again, you might recall from the last time we looked, there is customer and employee parking on both the west and north sides of the building here. They do have the T-shaped building. I'll show you the elevation here in a second. It's exactly the same as what you looked at last time. They were so close to get ready to pull the trigger on that project, they had already ordered the building and all the materials associated with it. So it is exactly what we looked at last time. If those that go past this site probably notice that some of those materials are staged out there already, waiting to get all these approvals done so they can start doing some site work out there. So they do have 2 entrances. One is off of Indianapolis Avenue that you see here. And then they do have a secondary access on the north side here. And I will note now that this access exits onto a private drive that's on the county's property. They have had conversations with the county about the county allowing access to that private drive. They will have to get county's approval for that, and then also record an access easement in order to be able to utilize that drive. So that comment was made in Kevin's TAC comments, so it is in the record that needs to be provided before they can actually access the site from this north side. So that is underway, and obviously the TAC comments require that approval before they can move forward with this site plan as it's shown right now. They do also have, so this kind of gray area that you see here is all paved. That's on the north and west sides of the building, and then they've got just a small area that they're paving to the south that's for display for their equipment. And they do have some paved areas that kind of wraps around the building where they have some of those overhead doors. The only gravel is kind of in this area to the rear of the building here, to the east part of the building that you see here. They do also have a small storage building that you may recall from last time. That storage building sits in this location here with the overhead door facing the main building, so the door does not face out towards the street. And then they've got a small little ramp back here for loading and offloading larger equipment if it's necessary. So that's kind of the general layout of the property. I'll walk through some of the highlights of the staff report here for you again. They did receive a series of variances from the Board of Zoning Appeals a couple of weeks ago that you'll see referenced in the staff report. I'll pull up the elevation of the building for those that may have not been on the Planning Commission the last time this came through. This will give you an idea what the building will look like here. Let's pull up that front elevation so you can see that a little bit closer. There is some metal metal components to the building. Because of the overlay, metal is not permitted, so they did receive a variance to allow some metal on the building. You see it's primarily first floor split face block with some of the upper portions of the building being metal. And then you'll see kind of in the back of the building, which is a larger high bay maintenance area, you've got some additional metal there. But the front is about half and half, maybe slightly more than half split face block. And then they've got a large overhang porch that runs the entire length of the front where they can put some of their smaller equipment outside under that porch that you see here. This is very similar to the building, if those that are familiar on 31 in northern Hamilton County. This is very, very similar to that building that you see up there in northern Hamilton County. They did receive some variances for parking area paving and curbing for the gravel equipment storage area to the rear of the building. They've got a ground sign that's at their existing site just up a little ways to the north on Indianapolis Avenue that they'll be moving down. It's actually larger than what's permitted, but it's a sign that they're already using, so essentially just moving from one location to the other. They had to receive approval for that. And there's a couple of variances for landscaping requirements that they did receive, but I'll highlight some of their landscaping for you here in a second. I guess I got to get the right plans up here first. Might help us. I think I accidentally closed their plans, so let's. All right. In terms of landscaping, they've provided all of the required parking lot perimeter landscaping on both the north and west sides of the property. They've got the trees evenly spaced, and then they've clustered the shrubs across the front in various clusters, which is permitted for a sales use like this. They do have the number that's required. They've just provided them in a cluster rather than a continuous shrub row. They've also provided some significant landscaping around the storage shed to provide some screening of that shed from the main thoroughfare. But then they also did provide then on both the north and south property lines a tree row that's part of the perimeter buffer requirement for commercial use like this to an institutional use that they're surrounded by in both the church and the fairground. So they have provided some landscaping along those perimeters to the rear of the property, and this is still something that's in the works. Their detention is towards the rear of the property. I'll let the applicant talk about the current status of that. They're still working with the county to figure out exactly how that's going to work. So that's something that's still underway and is one of the conditions of approval. In terms of the TAC comments, you'll see those summarized in the staff report, and they are still working through some of those comments from TAC that will all need to be done before they can pull any building permits. They do all meet all the applicable setbacks, standards, et cetera, of the planned business commercial zoning district. So I have outlined those in the staff report. In terms of parking, we've got that summarized in the staff report as well. They have met all of the applicable parking space requirements in terms of the number. In terms of the lighting plan, this is one that was kind of a work in progress as well. Their site plan was actually just finalized about a week ago. We were working with them on how that storage shed was going to be aligned on the property, so that just happened about a week ago. So they are still working on finalizing their lighting plan and do intend to meet all applicable UDO requirements, but that is something that's still outstanding, so that is also a condition of approval. In terms of the landscaping, we kind of already walked through that. Other than the variances that they have requested, they do meet all other applicable landscape standards. Signage we've talked about. They do have a ground sign that they received a variance for size. And then they also have signage on the front of the building that you'll see highlighted here that again meets all applicable standards for wall signs. And I just lost the elevation. Here you go. There we go. So you can kind of see this is a variation from what they had before. They went from three street frontages to one, so they did make some changes to their sign package in terms of wall signs so that they do meet the UDO there as well. Finally, in terms of architecture, other than the variance that they sought for the materials, they do meet all other applicable architectural requirements of both the Planned Business Commercial Zoning District and the Thoroughfare Overlay. So they're good there. So in terms of staff recommendation, we have recommended approval of the development plan subject to the following conditions. Number one would be stormwater approval, that they receive a formal drainage approval from the City of Lebanon Board of Works prior to receiving any building permits. Number two is TAC comments, that they address any remaining Technical Advisory Committee comments, one of which is the condition on the drive to the north, getting the appropriate access easement. That is incorporated with those TAC comments. And then number three, the lighting plan, that they provide a photometric plan that indicates light levels that are within the parameters of the UDO. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions for Ben? Would the applicant care to step forward and provide comments?
Good evening. Max Mauser with Studio A. With me tonight's Mitch Frazier with Reynolds Farm Equipment. Just to kind of highlight a little bit more on what Ben was discussing, I think he covered the site well. We have met with the county, and some of you may or may not know there's a regulated drain that comes up to the pond that's adjacent to our property. The regulated drain, we've been told, is non-functioning. So we're looking at petitioning, and we have petitioned the county to reconstruct that regulated drain. So that would go to the drainage board, and then there's a public hearing, public process. They get bids and so on and so forth until it's determined whether that will happen or not. What we're proposing to do in the interim is we're going to design this project freestanding. If we have to and can't, we will install our own separate outlet pipe. If this comes to a reconstruction of the regulated drain, then it's a shared process. There would probably be an upsizing of the pipe to handle the additional users in the area. If not, those users will have to find their own outlet in the future. As far as the easements, we have discussed this with Commissioner Applegate, with access to the drive, an easement for the drainage, and an easement for the sanitary sewer. City of Lebanon is in the process, and I've been working with Michael Susong with Lebanon Utilities. They're in the process of doing a large regional lift station project, which would extend a gravity main eventually up and pick up the gravity that's actually installed in front of our property along Indianapolis Avenue, with a lateral stub to our property, which currently goes to nowhere because it has no place to drain. So we're stuck with putting in a small grinder station and pumping to a gravity line, which would be on the southeast corner of the church's property, and then that gravity flows to the west, Indianapolis Avenue, to a little lift station that then pumps down north of Indianapolis Avenue back to a gravity line. Michael has suggested that was the fallback on the last site. They thought they would be under construction this last summer. Since then, they have changed projects. The project was going to be on the Bain site and now is moved down to the southeast corner of the fairgrounds property near the creek in a lower portion of the, I guess, surrounding area to pick up more property. With that, we agree with Ben's comments, and we will meet all of those necessary approvals before we begin any work, and be happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
Questions for the applicant? Devin, all these additional things that he's talking about, that's part of TAC?
Yeah, there's a lot involved with TAC, and it's primarily only complicated things on this project are really associated with these off-site drainage and utility issues. And probably what I see as the more complicated issue would be the off-site drainage, off-site utility, or legal drain reconstruction. Of course, the entrance to the north, I would include on all this. Those are all things that they can't really do without full cooperation from the adjoining property owners, which is the county. I haven't had any direct conversation with Boone County to know where they stand on these things. Might see these issues resolved. We'll want to see that all that is addressed before we would issue any kind of construction permit on something like that.
Ben, you're satisfied that all these things inside the TAC comments are thoroughly covered?
Yeah, I mean, as Kevin mentioned, there are still some fairly significant issues need to be addressed. They don't necessarily change how the site will be designed. So from a planning perspective, the site is the site. There are definitely significant issues that are going to have to get addressed with the county. So we'll assist them in any way we can to get those addressed. But until they get addressed, there's not much they can do in terms of starting construction on the site. So the site won't change necessarily in any significant way. If the sanitary pipe may turn a different direction, but in terms of the actual site itself, the building location, parking, et cetera, that won't change such that they'd have to come back to you. So I feel pretty comfortable with the conditions. There's significant conditions, but I'm comfortable that conditions address anything that would need to be addressed prior to pulling building permits.
Including the access?
Yeah, they're in the TAC comments, they're in the record, they're in the file. If we want to add a condition on the approval that they receive that access easement, I'm okay with that too. If you're more comfortable adding that as a condition number 4 on the approval.
Okay.
Is there going to be equipment going in and out of that area going towards the north, or is that going to be more of employee parking and so forth? I thought I saw on the map it was more like employee parking.
The employee parking will primarily use the entrance off of Indianapolis Avenue. I would think that north entrance is going to be solely for when they're bringing in equipment in and out on trailers, which won't be incredibly regularly. It'll be the heavier traffic will be the customer employee traffic on that Indianapolis Avenue entrance, but that would be primarily their access for equipment on that north side.
Keep in mind the rear of the site is all in a gravel area, so you can drive around the building, especially with farm equipment. And if for some reason they aren't able to get the access to the north, obviously it would require a minor change to the development plan, but the site would still function, in my opinion, without that second entrance. Obviously, it changes some operational issues for Reynolds, and as Max said too, they are adjacent to a legal drain easement, so they've got a right, as they've said they have done so, to petition the county for connection and reconstruction of that legal drain. So if they have to, if the county says, no, you can't access our private drive, I think the site can still function. And if they're not able to modify the county's pond to create this larger combined detention area, they are, again, adjacent to a legal drain and and already have made that petition request to the county to. I would echo Ben's comments. There's significant technical issues on the site, but we won't release any kind of a construction or development plan permit until those are resolved. But regardless of how those are resolved, with the possible exception of eliminating a driveway, I don't see the development plan changing. But Ben's right, from a planning perspective, that this is ready for your approval.
Is there a way the county can decline either option or both options? And if so, what happens at that point? I mean, is it a...
I guess I would have to defer. I think that's a legal matter, whether the county can decline a position to connect to a legal drain. In my experience, I've never seen that happen, but again, I would defer to legal counsel, either ours or the county's, on whether they could, and then I would defer to Max and Studio A on exactly how they would resolve that issue on their site if for some reason they
Just to touch base again on the drainage, the petition of the legal drain being filed, right now it's a 15-inch clay tile. It runs out of, it's not even in the pond. They actually have a pipe over to the pond that's their outlet pipe. Their pipe's like an 8-inch pipe. But that pipe runs to kind of their southeast corner of the property, to the creek there. What we're proposing is a separate pipe running parallel to the kind of the access road that's coming in on our north side. If you just extended it to the creek, that's our path. Right now, we're proposing, if we can't get a resolution on the legal drain, that we will install the pipe without the county. It's not what we want to do. It's a burden we don't feel we should have to deal with, but at this point, by going to a site and back to a different site, we're stuck with moving forward, and that's the only way to move forward. So.
Was the other site not being able to be built on? Is that what I'm understanding?
We did some test site holes out there to see what was there. We did some borings. The borings are always, it's loose material, it's gravelish, so we dug several holes. There was some remnants of the old package plant that was there. Some of that was oozing out still. So when we started looking at hauling everything out, taking it to a hazardous site, even though it's just asphalt, you still have to take it to a separate site. It just became cost ineffective to take that site on. And from a long term, that was the client's decision. I mean, it could be built on, it just isn't something he wanted to deal with.
I would make a motion that we approve docket number 18-47.
Let me open it up for public comments first.
So sorry.
Anyone?
I always forget that.
Public comments? Seeing as how there's none, I would now entertain that motion.
I make a motion that we accept docket number 18-47, provided all of the TAC comments are taken care of prior to building permits being pulled.
That would include the stormwater approval and the lighting plan?
I will also ask that the stormwater and the lighting plan be approved as well before the building permits are approved or pulled.
Great. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Kelly?
Ashley Paddock? Yes. John Lastly?
Yes.
Kevin Krulik?
Yes.
Keith Campbell?
Yes.
Gordon Perry?
Yes.
Jane Taylor?
Yes.
Lori Gross?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. I understand it's complicated, and we appreciate you looking into all that.
Appreciate your time.
Moving on to docket number 1848, Duke Realty. Ben, I'll let you run with it.
All right, now we go back to the business park on the site directly adjacent to the first project we looked at. So that first one was about a 40-acre site, about a 550,000 square foot manufacturing facility. This one we're looking at is about a 60 plus or minus acre site, and we're looking at a 1.2 million square foot warehousing distribution facility for as a yet unnamed tenant. This is State Project Hoosier, for those that have heard that mentioned before. Let me pull up. Again, I will apologize, this site is so large and the building's so big, it's going to be kind of hard to really tell what's going on here, but we'll try to get the gist of it for you. The demolition plan is on 6 different pages, so you can kind of see how big of a site it is. So this is the overall site that you'll see here. You've got Edwards Drive to the east and Mount Zion Road kind of wraps around it to the north and the west here. This is one of the last Duke-owned sites in the business park. They do have some options on some additional ground, but this is some of the last of the Duke-owned sites. You will see here there is, again, I mentioned this is a warehousing distribution, so there's significant docks on both the east, south, and west sides of the building, and significant trailer parking associated with it. The employee parking you will see is kind of this darker color that's on both the north and northeast corners of the building here, where they've provided employee access on both the north and west sides. Their primary truck access point is to the northeast corner of the property you see here, and they do have kind of a guardhouse, if you will. This is an incredibly secure site. So this does have a barbed wire chain link fence that received a variance approval from the BZA a couple weeks ago. That was a tenant requirement. It is fairly high value inventory that they will expect in this building. So they do require that sort of security around their truck access areas. In terms of the building, what the building will look like, we'll do that first. I believe this is the one I want here. So again, very large building. There's a small office component that's up at the northeast corner of the building. The rest of it is a large open warehouse. So this gives you a general idea of the architecture. They do have some architectural breaks, variations in color. They have a nice entryway for their small office area that's here. But this is primarily a large warehouse building. So similar to some of the other buildings we have in the business park. Let's see if there's anything else. I was going to go back. In terms of landscaping, again, this is similar to the last one we just looked at here a couple of items ago. They've met all the landscaping requirements for the employee customer parking areas on the north sides of the building, and then requested relief from the landscaping for the primarily truck access areas to the rear of the building. I was going to see if I could scroll down and find that landscape plan for you. Again, this is going to be in sections, so it's kind of hard to see what exactly is going on, but I can give you an idea here. Scroll back up here so I get to the right sections. Again, this one's in sections, so you won't see the whole site. This is the northeast corner of the property where you see north is actually to the right on this plan. You can see the kind of the guardhouse here, the truck access area. This is the employee customer area. And they have provided both perimeter landscaping and street corridor buffer landscaping, so there is significant landscaping along this north side, and you'll see this continued around kind of the north and northwest corners of the buildings. They both have that corridor street buffer as well as the parking lot perimeter landscaping. You do see that they do have a secondary access into their truck court on this west side of the building as well. I'll walk through some highlights of the staff report here for you. Again, very similarly to the one we just looked at a couple items ago, they requested a variance for the sidewalk. Again, the fence standards, I mentioned that they did request a variance to allow the barbed wire. They do have that truck access area as a wider driveway than our maximum permitted, so they've requested a 45-foot wide drive to allow us just safe ingress and egress for those trucks coming and going. In terms of the landscaping, as I mentioned, they did request relief from the landscaping requirements for the truck access areas, and then also relief for parking curb on the truck access areas as well. The final one, and this was one that we're still working through the exact details on how they're going to address this. They did propose the dumpster location on the west side of the building where it would be visible from the street. And just because of the amount of trucks that are coming and going, this is a heavy truck site. The amount of trucks coming and going to provide a permanent screen around the dumpsters, you would end up having a truck hitting that, and so they'd be constantly trying to maintain the wall. So what they had proposed was to provide some additional screening on the fence to the north of where the dumpsters will be located, so it'd be screened from Mount Zion Road. The Board of Zoning Appeals did apply a condition to that approval to relief from the wall directly around the dumpster. They did want to see a more substantial wall treatment along this north end as opposed to a chain link fence with mesh backing. They did want to see something that was more substantial than that. The option that was thrown out there is similar to the Weber concrete project that's got it's some sort of plastic poly material that looks like a stone wall. So something that'd be similar to that. They're still working through the exact details of that to see whether that's the appropriate treatment or something like that, or whether they just move the dumpster location so they don't even need the variance anymore. So they're still working through those details. We're working with them on that, but that is one that they are still working to finalize those details. So I'll just walk through some of the staff report. The TAC comments have been provided and summarized for you. There's no major hurdles anymore. I believe they actually have already received their drainage approval, so that's already done. I've left it as a condition just to make sure everything's good to go there. They're in essence at this point, they've had everything approved to the point where they could pull earth moving permits at any time once they get their tenant's approval to do so. In terms of the development standards, they have met all the applicable development standards of the Planned Business Industrial Zoning District. Parking requirements, they have met all our applicable parking requirements for a number of spaces. In terms of lighting, we did find some measurements that were incomplete on their plans where they hadn't provided the foot candle measurements all the way to the property line, so we did ask them if they could amend their lighting plan to make sure we could confirm that all the lighting levels were appropriate. They have, I did leave it as a condition, but they did provide that to me earlier today, and they do meet all the applicable requirements, so that is taken care of. In terms of landscaping, they've met all the applicable landscaping standards outside of the variances that were requested for the truck access areas. Signage plan, again, this is a confidential project where the tenant has not been identified yet, so they have not yet identified with their tenant what their signage requirements are going to be, but that'll something that'll come back later, and they do intend to meet all applicable signage requirements. In terms of architecture, again, I showed you the elevations of the building, but because it is a large-scale manufacturing or warehousing facility, it is exempt from the architectural design standards of the UDO. So with that, staff has recommended approval of the development plan for Project Hoosier for Duke Realty, subject to the following conditions, that they adequately address any remaining technical advisory committee comments if there are any, that they receive formal drainage approval from City of Lebanon Board of Works, that they provide a photometric plan, lighting plan that indicates light levels that meet the parameters of the UDO. And finally, the fence, that they provide a revised site plan replacing the proposed chain link fence according to the BZA condition of approval and provide specs on the proposed changes there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ben? Would the applicant like to come up and provide comments?
Hi, good evening. Nathan Harris representing Duke Realty. Address is 600 East 96th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. Ben did a great job walking you all through the project. We're very excited to have yet another development. The park's doing very well this year, so we're excited about this new development. I'd like to answer any questions if you all have any.
Did you guys turn in the line of survey, sight line?
Yeah, so similar to the first building, our rooftop units will be placed so that they're not visible from the street. We still haven't buttoned down the exact heights of all of our rooftop units because the client hasn't provided all the specifications yet, but that is our intent.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? I'll open it up for public comment if anyone has any. Okay. All right. So,
I'll make a motion that we approve docket number 1848 with the following conditions: that they address the TAC comments, stormwater approval, the lighting plan, and the fence.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Kelly?
Ashley Paddock,
Yes.
John Lastly,
Yes.
Kevin Krulik,
Yes.
Keith Campbell,
Yes.
Gordon Perry,
Yes.
Jane Taylor,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Great. Passes. Thank you. All right. On to item number D, docket number 1857. Ben?
All right, the development just keeps on coming. We've got another annexation that's been presented to us. This is a piece of property that's in the northwest part of the community. I'll pull up that location for you here. We have received a voluntary petition for annexation from the developer approved by the property owner. This is, while I've seen some very early sketch concepts, we don't have anything filed yet, but the intention is for an age-targeted single-family neighborhood on this property. I believe that's the new term that they're using for a no-maintenance neighborhood. So in essence, they would be single-family homes, but all the maintenance of the yards, landscaping, streets, et cetera, will be or not the streets, all of the yards and landscaping on each of the lots would be provided by the homeowners association. So this is a no-maintenance neighborhood, single-family neighborhood at what's being proposed. I think the intention would be that they would maybe file the plans for this sometime in the first part of next year, January or February. So this will be coming back to you for approvals there. The one hiccup, if you will, to this is that we are getting close to the 2020 census, and state law indicates that you cannot have any annexations that are effective in the year prior to the census. So because of the schedule for this, the earliest it could be effective is in January, so we run into a little hurdle there. We are going to take it through the annexation process and get the ordinance adopted by, if the council chooses, to adopt that annexation ordinance, but it'll have an effective date of January 1, 2020. And then what we'll need to do in order to take them, we don't have jurisdiction, this commission doesn't have jurisdiction outside of the city limits, so we'll have to enter into some sort of agreement with the county in order for them to provide us planning jurisdiction for this site alone. So that's a little bit of a hiccup, a little bit of workaround we have to do, but we are going to take the annexation through and get it adopted ideally, and then it won't become effective until 2020, but we'll have to do a little workaround agreement with the county in the meantime so we can take it through the approval processes. It is adjacent to the existing city limits on the eastern boundary. You'll probably notice that we're in a very similar vicinity of the Sunbrook development that came through this board earlier this year. It is in fact the same developer working with a similar builder, just one of their different product lines that they're proposing here. Again, I think they're hoping to start, they wanted to start construction on Sunbrook already. One of the challenges was getting an easement for sanitary sewer on this property. So now that they have got it under the whole property under contract, now they've worked out their sanitary easements. So as soon as we finalize the construction drawings and approve the construction drawings for Sunbrook, that'll be moving forward. This one will be shortly thereafter. They're hoping later in 2019, getting construction underway here with home sites available by 2020. We are seeing definitely some activity in the residential side. In terms of what this is before you here tonight, as with all proposed annexations, these are required to come to the Plan Commission first for a recommendation on a zoning district prior to going forward to the council for the annexation ordinance. I will also state that this will likely come back to you as a PUD ordinance from the applicant, so they'll use that process for the actual development. But in terms of creating a base zoning district that's applicable from the use perspective, we've looked through both what they're conceptually proposing now, what's going on in the area, what seems most appropriate from the comprehensive planning perspective, and based on that, well, before I say that, the ordinance would suggest that without a plan in place, we should use the SF zoning district as the base zoning district. I have not recommended that because that zoning district allows some more agricultural type uses that I wouldn't want necessarily to see for a residential developed area here. Not that they couldn't address that with their PUD ordinance, but I think the SF1 zoning district is more applicable in this case. So staff has recommended that the Plan Commission recommend the SF1 zoning classification to the Common Council for this proposed annexed territory. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
.6 acres, Ben, is there, it has nothing to do with the recommendation that what you're looking for from the council, but the density, is there any idea of?
I don't have an idea yet. We've seen a very early sketch layouts where there wasn't anything necessarily that had been engineered yet. So I don't know the exact density. I would anticipate that it would be similar density to Sunbrook, however.
Does the city have, some of the newer subdivisions will have HOAs and such, but I mean, this would be the first, like, HOA that's going to take care of everything.
I don't know if there are other senior targeted or age targeted communities that have.
I believe the first one that comes to mind is Stable Walk. I believe that's completely maintenance-free. The exteriors are all maintained by the OA. I know there's some others that are probably more, they have less of a single-family appearance and more of an apartment appearance. But I would have to do some research. There's more than just Stable Walk, but that's the first one that comes to mind.
This may be the first single-family neighborhood that would be.
Perhaps,
no
yeah.
maintenance.
Stable Walk is duplexes.
Duplexes.
Yeah.
So it's single family, are we talking like true backyards, or are these patio homes? I mean,
I don't know. I have not seen enough information from them yet. My guess is it's going to be primarily ranch homes, again, age targeted, so I'm guessing it's going to be a ranch product, probably kind of like the patio home concept, but I have not seen yet exactly what they're proposing.
and putting forth the recommendation for this particular classification, there's still a lot of work that would have to be done before that we're not
absolutely
locked into it.
This zoning district wouldn't guarantee them approval of that product because they would still need to rewrite some standards appropriate to the product. Really all we're doing with the zoning district is clarifying or defining the uses that are permitted, and then they'll look at the development standards associated with that zoning district and see where they might need to vary from those standards for their actual product. So this is all just about defining the uses that are permitted on the site.
Okay. Other questions for Ben? If not, I would entertain a motion for the, oh, I'm sorry. Get this mixed up a lot. I'll open it up for public comment or public hearing. Anyone has any comments or questions, concerns? Please step forward. Don't everybody rush. Okay, I will close the public hearing end. And again, I would entertain a motion for the single-family residential SF1 classification.
I'll make a motion to recommend the single-family residential SF1 zoning classification to the Common Council for the proposed annexed territory.
Have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second the motion.
Second. Kelly?
Ashley Paddock,
Yes.
John Lashley,
Yes.
Kevin Krulik,
Yes.
Keith Campbell,
Yes.
Gordon Perry,
Yes.
Jane Taylor,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
We will send that along, Ben.
All right.
All right. Any other business? If not, I Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. This concludes the November Planning Commission meeting. We will be back on December 17th, Monday, December 17th at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much.